Hello, I'm Dave, aka Geezer Geek, like you see up there. Thank you for clicking on one of my videos. Today I am picking up where I left off last time on my FX100 hardware. I had shared with you previously that I had determined that Ubuntu was not recognizing my floppies because of a failure on my part to get my BIOS settings all correct. Yeah, I still have some of that antique hardware in operation. And if I can figure out a good way to do it, I'll make a video showing the details of how to set up that particular BIOS in order to make this happen. It's not hard, but as I indicated in that video, 3 different settings are needed. Now, since that video, I have experimented with the latest Ubuntu LTS, that's 20.04, and it still recognizes my floppies right out of the box, no problem at all. So presently, the floppy module for the kernel is still available. This is with the latest kernel version. But that's to one side now. What I'm doing next is tidying up my cables in that system. A little bit messy, and those ugly red or orange cables, I think I'll change those and do something different there. I have options for my SATA cables. Well, I had these long, ugly red ones in it, and I can replace them with black ones. Be much nicer looking, I think. And again, with the floppies, I have options. You saw in that video this orange-red one that I had in it. Not very pretty. I think I'll replace it. And I have options. All of these are from my collection from over the years. I could go with an old-fashioned flat ribbon. Got plenty of them. I could go with this early version of a sleeved cable. Now you see the ties on it instead of shrink wrap. That could be prettied up a little bit, I think. Might be something I could do. I'll see if I think it looks okay. Might go with this, or I have a couple other possibilities. I have this silvery color one that I could use, and I have this coppery colored one. So I'll make a determination which one I think looks best, and I'll do the swap and figure out what looks best and how best to route the cables and do all that nice tidying up and cable management stuff. After I've done all that, I'll come back and show you the results. I don't think that anybody likes to watch the process. I think it's kind of like watching paint dry. So I'll just show you the results. I've already shown you the mess. Now I'll show you the results. But after that is done, then I'm going to work on my Windows installation. This is a dual boot system that I set up I had Windows on it. It's an 8-year-old system. I had Windows on it, Windows 7. And when I started experimenting with Linux, I put Ubuntu on it as a dual boot system. Not recommended to newbies to just jump in and do that. But that's how I went ahead and got started. As I said, I've been playing with computers for an awful long time. So in the process of what I'm doing today, I'm going to be working on that Windows installation. Windows 7 is no longer supported. It needs to be, I need to migrate it to Windows 10 if I'm going to keep a Windows system on this computer, keep it as a dual boot system. And I think I do want to do that. So I'll make that migration. Before I do that, I'll do a backup using Macrium Reflect. Now, I've already made a video about using Macrium Reflect, so I'm not going to redo that one in this. And I think I've already shared with you a little bit about the migration process with another computer that I was working on. But if you would like to see walkthroughs on any of these things that I'm talking about, let me know, and I'll be happy to try to accommodate you. I have also talked previously about why I consider Windows 10 not to be an upgrade to Windows 7, but just a migration. And I've tried to explain a little bit of why I believe more people than currently do recognize it. More people could consider Linux as their alternate route of migration. There's a lot of reasons to consider it. Now, there are also valid reasons for staying with Windows 10. I recognize that. And, it has to be your decision, and I just want you to understand that Linux is a viable option. So with that introduction, I'm going to get on with my cable management, and then I'll come back and show you the results of that before going on to work on my Windows installation. So, back in a bit. So you can see that it's the AMD themed Thermaltake V3. And I've pulled the sides off of it already, so you can see that humongous aftermarket cooler by Cooler Master. And I'll try to turn here just a bit. Those cables were an early answer to having all those flat ribbon cables in there that was obstructing airflow. I have 2 floppies in it right now, and that's the reason for those cables. This is actually an IDE CD-ROM drive, optical drive, and there's supposed to be a data cable running from it down to the connection on the motherboard, but it's out of the way for the moment. So you see at the back of the case I have 2 add-on cards for extra USB 3 ports. I have my graphics card. So as you can see, I have tidied things up quite a bit. Some ways there's only so much you can do when you're working with the old ATA or IDE type cables like these and like these. They're just not as pretty no matter what you do, and kind of bulky and in the way. So you do what you can. I could have spent a whole lot more time working on it, but I figure closed sides, no windows, I'll neaten it up, and good enough is good enough. So as you see, I went with that particular style of IDE cable. I went with the braided cable for the floppy cable, and tidied things up down here. It is what it is. Out of this, I do have a couple more projects to do. I mentioned that this Cooler Master is just a little bit tall for this case. It pushes on the side of the case just a little bit, and either that means not fully connecting the side, or it provides pressure on the motherboard, neither one of which is good. I've been running it this way for a couple of years without the side of the case, but I think I'd like to go ahead and close it up, and that'll mean changing back either to the stock cooler, or I have a couple others that I'm going to try. Now, you've probably seen various kinds of tests of coolers where they do synthetic benchmarks on them and see just how much of a cooling benefit you get from these aftermarket coolers. I'm more interested in the practical effects. I mentioned that my rendering gets my CPU going near 100% on this machine. Not quite, 90 to 95 maybe. So that means it's generating some good heat. And so I want to find out, is there actually a practical benefit? Is there actually a practical benefit to going to something other than the stock cooler? Will my render time be less using an aftermarket cooler? If not, then I might as well just run the stock cooler. But I do have a couple other aftermarket coolers that I can try, and I'll do that video next, checking the differences, if any, in actual real-world use. Is there a difference in the results that you get? And so that'll be one thing that I'll do with this. This project is just about ready to go. I have Windows 10 on the hard drive, and I have actually moved my SSD to another location just out of view underneath. I use F11 with this BIOS to switch between the two possible boot drives, and that way Windows 10 isn't interfering with my Ubuntu drive, and Ubuntu's grub system doesn't mess up my my Windows drive. I'll draw this one to a close. The next one will be on the effectiveness of the coolers, and then after that I'll talk to you about recovering your Windows master boot record and getting your Windows system running again. So, have a good evening, a good week, and I'll see you in the next one.